Good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us again on the program Flipside. And Daisy Leo Asakidi, your host in today's edition of the show. So the World Health Organization has decided to make a whole week an awareness week on the impact of antibiotics and antimicrobials. That was like the first time I'm hearing antimicrobials. I've heard antibiotics a lot of times. I've bought antibiotic drugs and all of that. But this antimicrobial was all new, and I decided we needed to learn about it because it's becoming a problem in the world. Have you ever tried to treat an ailment and then you start getting better? Maybe you stop taking the drugs. Later you have like a relapse. You use the same drug to treat it and yet it's not working. It's as if this sickness not a hear you again. That's what they are doing right now. They want to create an awareness for people to understand that some diseases are becoming resistant to the drugs that are supposed to treat them. And there are reasons why this resistance is happening. And if we do not take caution, it's going to become worse. And there are so many more diseases that will come in the future that we don't know yet. So we're going to join our voice with the World Health Organization and talk about antibiotics resistance. It's usually on the 18th to 24th in the month of November. So even though today is not 18th, but we still know that this is a very relevant topic and we're dealing with it today. I have a guest in the studio that will be talking about this with me, but you know the drill on Flipside. Before I reveal my guest, we're going to short break. We'll take the UN's message for this team and other important information that you need to know. We'll be right back. Good to have you join us again. Thanks for staying tuned. If you just tuned in, the program you're watching is Flipside, and I am Daisy Leo Asakidi. Okay, let's meet my guest. I have someone you've seen on Flipside before. Even though it's been a while, I had to pull him down from Neuropsychiatric Hospital Salute today that you just need to be with me in the studio. I have Pharmacist John in the studio with me, Pharmacist John Akiho. Good to have you in the studio.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So we're talking about antibiotics. First of all, I know we just buy drugs. They say we can take antibiotics, but what exactly are they? What are they used for? And just give us a general knowledge of what they are.
Okay, antibiotics, like the word goes, anti, against, biotics, against life. But this time is not against the human life, it's against microbes, which is microorganisms. So antibiotics are medications that destroy or kill that kills microorganisms or prevent the growth of microorganisms
in the body.
And they are used to treat infections or prevent infections in the body.
Oh, okay. You can use it to prevent as well.
Yeah.
Right. There's one myth I've heard. I would ask you, but not right now. Okay. I would ask you that one. Okay, let's move on. What exactly could possibly be reasons why a drug the doctor prescribed, an antibiotics the doctor prescribed for an ailment maybe I've had before, I will now take it. It doesn't work. So what's causing this resistance?
Actually, that question you asked could have different reasons for such. One of them is it could be that the antibiotics is not sensitive to that organism. That's a microorganism. Then secondly, it could be that the organisms have resistance over the antibiotics. And this resistance, though we've not asked such question, but resistance is developed by the organisms as a mechanism to overcome the antibiotics you are using against it. And you, the user, may have given the organisms the opportunity to build resistance against these antibiotics by indulging yourself in misuse of the drugs. Misuse in the sense that you may be asked to take the drugs for 5 days and you just take it for 3 days and you feel okay and you stop. And by so doing, you've not actually killed effectively all the drugs. And those ones that are still remaining will now try to build resistance against such antibiotics, such that when you now take the drug the second time, it will just be
Odechi.
It will just be Odechi, as you say.
Interesting. Okay, but first, before we even begin to talk about, okay, how then can we ensure, because that will become a big problem. Imagine if all the antibiotics we have for different diseases, our bodies are now beginning to resist it. Because I remember when I was having malaria recently, I went to the hospital and they asked me, what did I take? I said, yes, I took what I normally take. Like, that's self-prescription. But I told them what I took. But it did not work for me, and I took the complete dose. So they had to opt it. They gave me another drug and gave me injections on top. Usually it's either injections or drugs, but this time they had to use both because the malaria was not hearing it.
Okay.
So imagine if we now get to a stage where what we're going to use to treat our ailments are no longer working. That would be a big disaster. So what would you advise us to do to ensure that we keep our bodies in a state that when we take the right antibiotics for the right ailments, it works?
Actually, resistance, before I answer your question, I would just say resistance is a global threat. Because I remember vividly some years back, we in the news, I think CNN or so, we had a case of one American that had tuberculosis, drug-resistant tuberculosis. They've used the drug for it, and that particular strand was resistant to the anti-tuberculosis drug. So that patient has nothing again he can take to cure his tuberculosis. So what they did was to put him under surveillance. He mustn't go with other people. And the issue that day was that he flew from one state in America to another state in a plane where that is enclosed. So you see, it was an issue all over the CNN news that day because he may have infected somebody, and if that strand goes to another person, you see, and that's how they keep spreading it. So that's why I said it's a global threat. So what we should do to prevent such is to follow your prescription strictly. Number one, you avoid self-medication. Then number two, you follow your doctor's or your pharmacist's prescription strictly. When they say take this drug once a day, take it once a day. When they say take it twice a day, take it twice a day. And I also advise to use this medium to advise general public. When you finish, especially from a private hospital, try to get your own pharmacist when they prescribe for you, because most of them, sorry to say, most of them don't have a pharmacist per se. So they use, I don't know who they use, maybe nurse or whatever. And those ones may just, because even in the tertiary hospitals and even primary hospitals where they have pharmacists, when the doctor prescribes, it goes to the pharmacy. They don't just, people think they cost the drug. They assess the drug to see if the prescription is correct. Whether it's correct. Because at times, due to human error, the doctor may say twice a day instead of thrice a day. So with such, it could lead to resistance. Resistance is the misuse of such antibiotics when you don't use it correctly the way they said. Because when they said the drug should be taken 3 times a day, there's what we call therapeutic index.
Okay, what's that?
Half-life of a drug. Let me start with half-life of a drug. The half-life of a drug is the hours it will take a drug in your system to eliminate half of the drug out of the system. So when it gets to that half of the drug concentration in your system, the concentration has come down. You need to reinforce again, because these antibiotics kills the organisms. You understand? They kill the organisms. So the concentration in the body must maintain a particular concentration. So when it goes below that, you take the second dose. That's why you see some drugs you'll be asked to take drug twice, while some once. It depends on the half-life. If the half-life is about 13 hours or 14 hours, does it take 13 hours for half of the drug to leave your system? That can serve you for the whole day. That's why you see they say take a drug once a day. But when it's 3 hours or 4 hours, that drug you can take it 3 times a day, every 8 hours. So when the drug concentration comes down, you refill again. When it comes down, you refill to maintain that concentration that will kill that organism.
Yeah.
So you see why when you don't take it correctly, the concentration may come down, and the one available may not be enough to kill the organism, and then the organism will now build its own resistance, because they are also living things. They strive to live. They strive to they strive to survive, even in the midst of you attacking them. Just like humans, they say if you pursue a goat, when it gets to the wall, it will attack you back. So they try, and by so doing, by any means, they tend to even produce something that may even counter that your drug. Yes, there are like maybe I'm going too far.
No.
Like the penicillins, we call them penicillins. Penicillin was discovered in the year 1928 by a scientist, pharmacist scientist, Felling, during the First World War, and they were using it to treat soldiers that were coming back from the war injured. And by so doing, resistance started developing from this drug. And when resistance developed, what they were even doing, when they administered to the soldiers, they collect the urine from the soldiers and then go and not study, they go to filter the drug out of the urine and re-administer. That was what they were doing as at that time. So you see, when at a time, especially when they were short of these drugs, because they, during the war things were not really going on well. So you get these soldiers, most of them were dying because of injury, infection from injury, and so they were repeating this drug, take their urine, purify the drug out of it, from it, and then re-administer. This was what they were doing, all at the best to prevent resistance. And from so doing, other antibiotics started evolving from that one till date, and we have a lot of them. So that's what we have now.
So just follow your prescriptions the right way.
Yes, the right way.
And you'll be fine eventually. Okay. Can I use a leftover prescription drug? Like, I was given a drug for something. Maybe they told me to use for 6 days or 3 days. And maybe when I got to the pharmacist shop and they told me I couldn't buy one sachet, maybe I had to buy the full pack. So I've used my 6 days. Let's say I'm a very good person that follows prescription. I still have a sachet left. So if I'm sick again and antibiotics, can I use that one that was left behind?
The thing now is, you see, we always advocate you go for tests. The previous infection you had the previous time may not be the exact strand that you have now. That's why at times when you do a test, they will also do, there's what they call MCS, microscopic culture, microscopic culture and sensitivity. They take your sample, they culture it, then they look for the antibiotics that will work for it. If you had an infection before, they will tell you X, Y, Z is sensitive to it. If you had the same infection, that X, Y, Z now cannot work for it now, but A, C, and D will work for it now. Because it depends on the strand. I don't really know how to put it. It depends, but go to the hospital, let the doctor prescribe a new one for you. If that particular one you had before is among the ones that he prescribed for you, you can use it. If it has not expired, you can use it. All these measures we are taking is to prevent resistance. Because when the resistance when these organisms have built resistance for all these available drugs we have, then there will be nothing left to treat again. It will just leave you like that for God to help you.
Have you ever heard that antibiotics can lead to abortion? Okay. Anyway, I will leave him to ponder on that one. We'll quickly go on a short break, and when we return from the break, we'll talk some more about antibiotic resistance prevention awareness. We'll be right back.
Alexander Fleming discovered the first antibiotic in 1928. Unknown to him at the time, his findings would quickly revolutionize the whole field of medicine forever. So we ask, what is an antibiotic and how does it work? Antibiotics are chemical compounds that kill or inhibit the growth of bacteria. They do this in a variety of different ways. Penicillin works by breaking down bacterial cell walls, killing bacteria and preventing further growth. Imagine it like popping a party balloon. Since the discovery of penicillin, many other antibiotics have been found and modified to make them more effective, as well as ever increasingly safe for human use. Different antibiotics work in different ways to kill or stop the growth of bacteria. Antibiotics like erythromycin and neomycin work by stopping protein synthesis inside the bacterial cells. By binding to specific RNA and other internal structures, these antibiotics stop the process of protein synthesis, which is a basic need for all living organisms to survive. Antibiotics like ciprofloxacin, on the other hand, bind to DNA enzymes, inhibiting DNA replication, which stops cell mitosis so the bacteria cannot divide and grow. However, in some cases, bacteria can become resistant to certain antibiotics. This happens because of natural selection. Some bacteria can contain DNA, which allows them to make enzymes capable of breaking down antibiotics. These bacteria will survive such pressures, allowing them to proliferate and share their DNA with other bacteria, effectively giving them the same ability. Viruses are naturally immune to all antibiotics. This is because they do not perform the biological processes that bacteria do in order to survive. They also don't have cell walls. To make it easier and slightly more fun, imagine we give your mother-in-law a sledgehammer. We've also taken your car. Sorry about that. Luckily for you, we give you a tranquilizer dart. You should find it quite easy to prevent any damage being done to your car. However, the second time round, we remote control a small drone to fly into your car through its sunroof, then have it connect via Bluetooth to transfer software to disable your car's brakes. A little harder to stop with a small tranquilizer dart, don't you agree? A virus isn't a living organism, and will only do damage to a cell once inside, whereas a bacteria will do damage to a cell from the outside and can be killed, or at least in your mother-in-law's case, put to sleep for a little while. Antibiotic resistance in bacteria is becoming one of society's greatest and most frightening problems, facing us with a huge challenge over the coming decades. Many antibiotics are found in nature, but as we continue to destroy our natural surroundings, such as the rainforests and marine environments, where else do we look?
Thanks a lot for staying tuned. The program you're watching is FLIPSIDE, the other side of the news. So 18th to 24th of every November, the United Nations, in collaboration with the World Health Organization, says we should make awareness all over the world that people are developing resistance to antibiotics and antimicrobials. So as a result, if we do not let people know about all of these dangers, we to get to a point where we'll have diseases that we cannot treat. We'll have bacterial infections that do not have treatments because our bodies are now resistant to all of this. The reasons why we are developing this resistance, I have a pharmacist in the studio who has told us that it's because of negligence, and we do not follow instructions. The doctor says do this, we do another. All together, we don't even go to the doctor. We tell ourselves what's best. We prescribe for ourselves. We prescribe for our friends. When this one did me, I took this. Go take E-Day walk. So I have pharmacist John in the studio with me. He's a pharmacist at the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Selu. And together we're talking about this awareness. We're creating the awareness. So there was a myth I heard that pregnant women do not take antibiotics. And because if you take antibiotics, it will lead to an abortion. So many people who do not want to lose their babies will not take antibiotics. But if you want to get rid of the baby, just take antibiotics and it goes. It's something I heard while I was doing the research, but how true is that?
Actually, during pregnancy, you be very careful with the drugs you take. You don't take all drugs because some of them are contraindicated in pregnancy. But if you generalize antibiotics in pregnancy, it may not be true. There are some drugs that are safe during pregnancy, while some antibiotics are not safe. For those that are safe, even the one that you said you made mention now, that they use as abortifacient, not really abortifacient, to prevent pregnancy. Or do you mean to prevent pregnancy or during pregnancy?
No. They said you can use it to prevent.
Okay.
And if your prevention fails and you're already pregnant, at the early stages, you can use it to remove.
Okay.
That's what I heard.
Okay. Will I call it wrong knowledge? But whether it works for them, I don't know, because I discussed with my colleagues in the university if we can run a research on it. So you see, it's just a belief they got from, I just cannot tell. But obviously, it's not true. It's just few antibiotics that are not safe during pregnancy, especially the first trimester. All other ones are safe.
Okay.
Just few of them.
There are also things people do. A lot of people do it. I have done it. It's not a habit of mine, but I've done it once, where I was given a prescription. Although you've already explained this in part, that if the half-life is certain hours, you're supposed to top up. That's why the doctor prescribed that. Take it like this. I see it is very common in malaria drugs to tell you within 8 hours of the first one, you take the second one and all that. So I've had a situation where I missed the second prescription. So in the evening, I now took the two. So the second and the third, I took it together to make up for the one I missed. Does that have any effect?
That is why I even said it's advisable for you to have a pharmacist. Just like you have a family doctor, it's also good to have a family pharmacist. Because when you have a case like this, yes, some drugs you'll be told to take the two, while some you'll just be asked, immediately you remember, take one, then the next dose, take it. And another thing, you see, there is none of this information written on stone. You look at the particular antibiotics and act according to the antibiotics. There are some that can cause, they may ask you to take it once a day at night. Maybe it causes sedation, sleep.
Okay.
And if you missed it that night, you now take it in the morning and you're feeling sleepy. Maybe you are a commercial driver, you will now be feeling sleepy and driving. So you see some of these things, so you just wait for the next night. So some of these drugs, you don't just take two. And another thing again too, some of these antibiotics, that's why I say you cannot generalize all. You tackle it according to the particular drug. Some of them, just one dose is the maximum drug you should take for that day. So taking two, you tend to have overdose, and then nobody knows the toxicity effect. So it could lead to adverse effect or side effect that could be life-threatening. So you don't just take two to cover for that first one. The reason for taking, you may be asked to, take two, depending on the antibiotics. Then you may be asked, no, just take anytime you remember, or wait for the next evening dose and take the evening, or wait for the next month, just like that. Or they can even reshuffle it. Okay, if it's once a day, you're supposed to take it in the morning, you missed it. Okay, what you do, take it in the afternoon and maintain afternoon, just like that. So it depends on the particular antibiotics that you are on that one can give a response to it. But it's not ideal to just do it your own way by taking two or avoiding. Contact your doctor, contact your pharmacy. I think pharmacy is the best because they know these drugs. Yeah, they are the best.
Okay, don't be like me. That's what you just said, in other words. So is it possible to be allergic to an antibiotic? That's one. And then what are the side effects that could come from taking antibiotics? Are there no side effects? Because almost every drug seems to have a side effect.
Of course, antibiotics have their own side effects.
Okay, please enlighten us.
There are some mild side effects like nausea, vomiting, even diarrhea, even at times some rashes. Why there are some antibiotics that have peculiar side effects. There is this particular one that that is even written you shouldn't give it to anybody, give it to children, anyone less than 14 years, because it has a bone marrow side effect. So it shouldn't be given to children less than 14 years old. Not necessarily bone marrow, it locks this bone that you use to grow. So, and you don't give it to children because it could lock the bone and they will stop growing. I'm just using, these are the terms I can use, layman terms, exactly. If I were talking to medical personnel, I will use the real terms for it. So it could lock it up and they will not grow again. So you give it to people that have already finished growing, so to speak. That one is one of the side effects. Tetracycline, that we see, people even take it as a OTC drug. When taken with milk, it could cause discoloration of the teeth. Yeah. There are some other ones too, rashes on the skin, even different from this one is just normal side effect. There are some anaphylactic shock. You just give the antibiotics and the person will just kind of collapse. Yes, you will have to start reviving him. Even there are some you see, we call it idiosyncratic reaction, like the one you said your friend has allergic reaction to it.
Yeah.
You may not really know you have it until you've experienced it. So when you've experienced it before, the doctor will now tell you, or the pharmacist will now tell you, you should be wary of anything, especially the sulfonamides, anything that has sulfur. And people are really, we have majority of people that are allergic to that sulfur. So at times it could come out as swollen lips, swollen tongue, even just different reactions. And you start battling with the recovery of such a reaction. So whatever it is your own, we call it idiosyncratic reaction, your own.
Yeah.
Somebody may not, even your twin sister may not even react that way. Just your own personal, maybe because of your kind of blood group or whatever, that makes you react to that chemical. And it's not binding on everybody, just you, idiosyncratic reaction. While there are other ones like the cephalosporins, I'm calling the general names. It is so effective in killing microorganisms such that we have some good microorganisms in the gut, in the body. They are commensals in the GIT tract. And one of them stays in the gut. It produces vitamin K. It's a microorganism, but we call it good microorganism because they produce vitamin K for the body. And we need vitamin K to cause clotting. When you have injury, bleeding, to cause clotting. That's prevent bleeding. So now this antibiotic is so broad spectrum. It's so effective. Let me use that word. It's so effective that it even kills that one. And now, yes, because you understand, it kills it and prevents the person from having vitamin K, such that when the person has injury, he will not be bleeding. Yes, we call it a prolonged bleeding time, because you're not supposed to have it. You're not supposed to have prolonged bleeding time. After bleeding, it's supposed to stop. But now it will not have prolonged. It may even bleed till, God forbid, till death, or as the case may be. So antibiotics can also cause that one, prolonged bleeding time. Just like that. So for a pharmacist, if he knows that you are on this drug, he will probably tell you, don't involve in anything that may lead to injury because of this. But for those that do not really know these things, they just give you antibiotics like that and go, not knowing these are the implications that could come from it. So just like that, they all have
their own side effects.
Yes, unique side effects. Other than the normal, some could also give you GIT upsets. When you start having some stomach upsets, stomach disturbance, maybe indigestion or things like that. But the normal general one is just nausea, vomiting, and maybe headache or so. Just mild ones.
Oh, wow. All right. We'll go on another break. When we return, it will be the end of the show, though. But we will not let the pharmacist leave just now. We'll still let him have a word or two before we call it a wrap. We have a segment on the show that is about you. We just talk about something that will make you a better person. It doesn't necessarily have to relate to our topic. When we come back from that break, we will be ending the show. So stick around.
Food is commonly used to nourish and entertain guests. During interviews, dinner parties, Christmas celebrations, Igwe festivals, wedding parties, Valentine dinner and all kinds of events, food gets served. It is one thing to get served and begin to eat like a glutton, and it is another to eat and get admiration from those around. And so, proper table manners are needed for our formal and informal dates. Table manner rules are not complicated, and most importantly, they will help you make a great impression at your next meal. Especially for formal dates or business dinners, immediately you sit at the table. Make good use of your napkin. Your napkin is not a serviette paper. It is big, wide, and thick. Place your napkin on your lap. Immediately upon sitting down, unfold it while it's in your lap. And if you want to get up, pick up your napkin from your laps, fold it back and put it on your table before you leave. If you're hosted in a restaurant, you are expected to order for your food. Now, order something simple and familiar. Study the menu thoroughly before you order, so you don't order what the restaurant don't serve. To show you're ready to order, close your menu, place it on the table and the waiter will come to you. Don't yell for the waiter like you're at the bus stop. But if it's not a restaurant you're being hosted, maybe a family house, you might not have much choice as to what you want to be served. But try to eat whatever they serve you. Have a taste of everything placed in front of you. And for difficult foods like spaghetti, which is a common food in many homes, you need to learn how to eat spaghetti perfectly. Now, this is how you eat spaghetti. Once your spaghetti is served, don't twirl with the support of your spoon. Always use your fork only. Never cut the thread of your pasta with a knife. And once it gets into your mouth, chew. Don't slop like. Keep the fork in a vertical position. Put the prongs down against the rim and twirl. Rotate the fork in a clockwise direction and lift. Don't overload your fork so you can neatly put everything in your mouth. And now that you've learned how to eat spaghetti, sometimes we eat and get inconveniences like burn, onion, or we just have unwanted food in our mouth and we want to take it out. Unwanted food is removed from the mouth in the manner in which it is put into the mouth. Food put into the mouth with a utensil is removed with that same utensil. Meanwhile, foods eaten with the fingers, if you must remove unwanted food from such, you would also remove them with your fingers. We all know talking while eating is inevitable. So, if you have more than a few words to say, don't speak with your mouth full. Swallow your food. Rest your fork on your plate and speak before you resume eating. Don't gesture with a knife or the fork in your hands while you talk. It is not a battlefield. And also, don't drink with your mouth full. To avoid leaving food on the rim of the vessels, make sure the mouth is free of food and blot the lips with a napkin before taking a sip of your beverage. And now, about beverages and liquids we take at the table. We have different types of wine and different bottles, glasses for them. About wines, enjoy your wine when you're served. Don't rush it once it's poured into the proper glass. Instead, it is time for you to evaluate and enjoy the wine. Evaluating wines involve 4 basic steps: looking at it, swelling it, smelling it, and tasting it. Hold the wine glass up against a white background, such as a napkin or a tablecloth, preferably white, or ensure that the wine glass you're served with is a transparent wine glass so you can see the color of the wine. Red wines should range in color from deep purple to brick red, while white wines should range in color from lemon gold to golden amber. And after you've examined the color, you swirl your wine in your wine glass to aerate it. While you're done with that, you smell the wine. Put your nose in the glass and take a deep breath. Older wines should have subtler aromas than younger ones. And then you taste. To taste the wine, fill your mouth about half full and softly swish the wine around before you swallow. There are different wine glasses for different wines. Watch and learn. This is the first wine glass. It is short and very small. Use it during cocktail parties. In this wine glass is the champagne flute. It is narrow at the top to allow the bubbles from the wine come up and you can see the sparkling clarity of the wine. We also have the white wine bottle. It is wider than the champagne glass but not as wide as the red wine glass. This white wine glass is very portable. We also have this glass for red wine. The red wine glass can come in two shapes. It could be a bit round like the white wine glass but definitely wider, or it could come in this triangular shape. The point is the bottom, the base of the red wine glass is always wider than the rim, and this is to allow your wine aerate. You do not hold the wine at the base so that the heat from your hand doesn't alter the taste. You hold the wine glass at the stem. Utensil etiquette is also very important. In most situations where so much cutleries are arranged on the table, use the outside-in rule to tell which fork, knife or spoon to use at the dinner table. Start with the cutlery farthest from you and gently walk your way in. And if you drop a utensil, pick it up yourself and ask for the waiter to replace it. Don't clean and use it again. But if you cannot reach it, inform the waiter and ask for a replacement. Don't stand up from your chair to go pick up a fallen cutlery. It is wrong. And now, no matter how delicious the food is, do not scrape your plate. Scraping the plate or loud chewing is unpleasant to listen to, and it is considered impolite. Try to cut your food into one bite size or two bite sized pieces at a time. Don't cut it all like a baby. And when eating soup, spoon the soup away from you towards the center of the bowl. Usually, soup is served in a deep plate or a deep bowl, but please don't drink directly from the plate or bowl. And no matter how hot the soup is, don't blow on it or on a spoonful of soup. Do not slop like very delicious, and never tilt your bowl. Don't fill the spoon too much. Hold the spoon by resting the end of the handle on your middle finger with your thumb on top of it. And now, what you must do is fill your spoon by moving it away from you so it doesn't spill on your dress. Fill only 2/3 of your spoon with soup. Then sip from the side of the spoon quietly. When the soup is over, leave the spoon in the bowl, not on the table. In this era of electronics, please turn off or silence all electronic devices before entering the restaurant. If you forgot to turn off your cell phone and it rings, immediately turn it off. Do not answer the call, do not text, and do not browse the internet at the table. Be polite at the table. A simple "excuse me, please, I'll be right back" can do a lot for you. Do not leave the table without a word. Always be excused before you leave. When sneezing or coughing at the table is unavoidable, just cover your nose or mouth with a napkin and proceed as quietly as possible with the sneeze or the cough. Except in an emergency where you need to blow your nose, please don't use the napkin to blow your nose. Excuse yourself, leave the table, and use an handkerchief instead. Another thing you need to know is that food should be passed to the right or the left, but the point is, food has to move only in one direction. One diner either holds the dish as the next diner takes some food, or he hands it over to the person who then serves himself and hands it over to the next person. No crossing your hands over someone to pass food. And still on how things should be passed at the table, cream pitchers and other dishes with handles should be passed with the handle towards the person receiving them. And also, if someone asks for a salt or pepper, pass both the salt and the pepper. Even if the person asks for just one, pass both anyway. Each time service is provided at a multi-course meal, verbal acceptance is not necessary. But to review service, a verbal rejection of "no thank you" is given. And by the time you're done eating totally, just say "thank you." Even as you celebrate and go for all of these ceremonies, eat wise, eat decently, and be smart. Your body is your responsibility. Please take good care of it.
Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks for staying with us from start to this time. For those who just tuned in, you've missed a whole lot. You're just at the concluding part of today's topic, and we've been trying to create awareness of the use of antibiotics and the fact that our body can become resistant, and we don't want that. So what can we do? Well, you're still in luck because we'll upload this video to YouTube, so you can quickly go to ITV Benin on YouTube, click on our playlist, you look for Flipside and tap on those videos. You will see this one and just get in touch with everything we've been saying. Get yourself updated. And we also have a repeat broadcast on GoTV, TSTV, and StarTimes tomorrow. But quickly, for Mrs. John, before I let you go, what are your last words concerning this topic today, and anything you want people to know, or you want to stress or re-emphasize?
Okay, like we've discussed so far, I would encourage the public to, like I said before, have a pharmacist as a family pharmacist or your personal pharmacist, such that they are very accessible. You don't need to pay to even get through to them. You can, in any way, ask any questions from them as regards your drug. And I will also advise you, stick strictly to your prescription. Adhere, that's the word we use, adhere strictly to your prescription. If you were told to take like this, take it that way. Don't do your own, because you don't know. Drugs are not just anything you put in your mouth. If they are not taken properly, they can destroy you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. It's been quite enlightening. A lot of information packed into this one, and I kind of feel scared. Yeah, because I don't like drugs. And as a result, you can imagine what I do when I'm giving prescriptions. I hardly ever finish my doses. Now I think that this will be the last time it will ever happen again. I always opt for injections when I'm sick because I do not have that discipline to finish my drugs. I just take it and I feel better. I'm like, oh, Jesus did it. Jesus did it, and I'm running away. Please, let's follow the prescriptions on our drugs. If we're having issues, maybe allergic reactions, instead of just discontinuing the drug, try to reach out to your doctor to say, this is the reaction I'm having, and maybe can give you another that will still do the job that the drug was intended for, than you just stop it altogether and you feel you're good to go. Malaria is becoming a problem so much that we are thinking of making vaccines now. They've made some, and they've started using it in some countries in Africa. That's how serious malaria resistance has gotten, because we do not follow prescriptions. Let's not also make it a problem for all the micro or bacterial infections that we deal with, because there are a lot of them. And don't self-medicate ever. Do not self-medicate. I do not encourage it. I don't do it, and I don't want anyone to do it. All right, I'm Daisy Leosikidi. Thanks for your time. I'll be back again next week with another topic that makes the news, and we'll give it ample time on the show. Bye for now.